They say that everyone is a scientist and that life is simply the lab.
Though some scientists have far less earth-shattering intentions, since these two seem more interested in solving more petty problems.
Plankton versus Dr. Doofenshmirtz.
Dr. Heinz Doofenshmirtz. What a completely unexpected analysis. And by unexpected, I mean completely expected.
Born in the European country of Drusselstein, his childhood was rather bleak. Given his parents hated him so much they didn't even show up to his own birth, he spent a lot of his life getting looked down by everyone, including his more successful brother Roger, kids in schools, and various romantic flings.
Forced to be a garden gnome, left behind to be raised by ocelots, and even getting tricked into traveling to Wacky Land, better known around these parts as America, filled Doof with envy and anger. So upon reaching the US of A, he established Doofenshmirtz Evil Incorporated to conquer the tri-state area. Yeah, the entire world was a bit much for him to conquer, so you might as well start off small, right?
But to accomplish this, as well as get rid of any minor problem that plagued him, he needed the right tools for the job, which you can see with his many innators.
There's your typical ones. The Magnetonator, which could attract 80% of the Earth's tinfoil. The Meltonator and Freezinator, which honestly, what do you think they do? And of course, the Destructinator for blowing stuff up.
But there's plenty of more weird ones, like the Sandwich Suit Removinator, which is a giant vacuum that can suck up all the mascot suits in the world to shred them. The Atomic Leaf Blowerinator, which can blow leaves. And the Use the Lights for Evilinator, which was able to hijack a light show at Walt Disney World. Surely this will be the big game changer here.
He has the Turkeyinator, which, despite what the name suggests, just puts people to sleep. The Breadinator, which turns any target it hits into bread. A Time Travelinator, which he used to fight off an army of evil pistachios. And the Chicken Replacinator, which replaces the person with the nearest chicken.
But he's not just limited himself to innators. He's got plenty of traps throughout his base to take out agents who try to intrude on him, ray guns we can trap you in a bubble, rocket boots, and jetpacks for quick escapes. He's got plenty of planes, blimps, helicopters, and cars for transport, and he's even had a lightsaber in the weird live show.
And no evil scientist can be complete without an army to back him up. His innators have created clones of himself, clones of his nemesis, sentient kitchen appliances, and of course you can't forget the standard issue killer robots. But none match his most faithful creation of all, Norm. Created to match the ultimate enemy of man, Perry the Platypus, Norm is a 25-foot tall monstrosity of metal with enough weaponry to create planetary-level explosions.
He also makes a mean muffin. Of course, to keep him in check, Alcatraz Agent is always ready to stop him.
But Doof's perilous plots don't make it easy for the poor platypus to pummel him.
He founded in an island country, has been branded as the third most dangerous villain in the world by Elka, and several alternate timelines he was able to successfully take over the tri-state area.
Not to mention, Doof is durable. I mean, his home basically explodes every other weekend. But no physical feat matches his Do-Overnator, which not only rewinds time for whenever he needs to, but can even start ripping apart reality upon its overuse.
The people he can compare to are no joke. Perry's been able to dodge beams from these emitters, which are fast enough to blast different planets entirely, and he was able to react to asteroids while a rocket was flying through space. And he's about as smart as Phineas and Ferb, who have casually made galaxy-sized shields and made a quantum vortex that sucked up the universe just by playing ping pong for a while.
But eventually, Perry did end up stopping the Mad Doctor after all, in a way nobody could have expected. After battling the platypus for more than 6 years, Doof realized his schemes were never really about conquering the tri-state area, but simply getting the attention he's wanted since childhood. Now that he had a nemesis, he finally has the companionship he craved. With the help of his daughter, Doof finally saw the error of his ways and quit being evil for good. Or at least until the revival series. He even joined another show and eventually became the most important figure in world history by creating time travel and changing the course of life as we know it.
Kinda impressive for a middle-aged guy with a slouch who constantly reminds himself with short-sightedness and tendency to slap self-destruct buttons on everything for no reason.
Don't underestimate Danville's evil genius. His name is Doof and you'll do what he says. The sea. So fascinating, so wonderful, so boring. Jack shit happens underwater.
Yet even the ocean is corrupted by capitalism, as you can find out if you visit the Bikini Bottom and its premier fast food establishment, the Krusty Krab. Thanks to its main and most popular item, the Krabby Patty, this restaurant has been increasing in fish obesity rates for years.
But this belies its shaky origins. In the rags of Bikini Bottom came Eugene Krabs, founder of the Krusty Krab and its most popular patty. But also, the saltiest sea dog in the city, who wants nothing more than to rule the world with his stubby little paws. This is Sheldon J. Plankton.
Raised as one of a million children, Plankton spent much of his life being looked down on. Rather rarely, since his microscopic size makes even other fish tower over him. Though he did end up making a friend with the future crustaceous cheapskate, which eventually led to the two forming an unlikely friendship.
Unfortunately, after their first creation nearly killed Old Man Jenkins, Plankton in his rage created the secret formula that would soon give Krabs all of his success, leaving poor Sheldon alone and isolated once more.
But instead of starting a communist revolution like a normal person, he instead went his business himself, creating the chum bucket right across the street with his one singular goal in mind: steal the Krabby Patty formula and take over the world.
While he's not the best at cooking, Plankton is a diabolical mastermind with his inventions. He's been experimenting with science since he was a little kid, creating all sorts of contraptions and knickknacks to why and one-up Eugene.
He's created many robotic minions throughout the years, whether it be standard droids, cowboys, flying saucers, and even some wife Karen. You'd think he'd make her look hotter, but I guess he's more of a personality type than anything.
Karen is snarky and snappy, often playing the straight woman to her husband's antics. She's equipped with lasers, a molecular analyzer, time travel, and controls the chum bucket helmets that come free with every purchase. And also mind control you to be an obedient slave to Plankton, but whatever. These things were so deadly, even King Neptune, the literal god of the sea, wasn't immune.
But like any good scientist, Plankton is more than prepared to take on do-gooders personally. He's shown a wide variety of vehicles in combat, such as a tank, a bunch of freaky robot battle suits, and smaller one models after himself for platform fighting, equipped with lasers, sauce cannons, a bigger boot, and chum cannons.
But his desire to one-up Krabs goes simply far beyond just beating him. He's created robotic duplicates of both Krabs and his employees, such as the toy bot Spongebob, designed to kill Santa Claus, or the imitation Krabs, a robotic version of Krabs he can pilot and control at will. Hell, he's even made robot clones of him himself to fool people for his schemes, though they did end up turning on him at one point.
He even built the sonic cannon that destroys every known material in the universe, which does exactly what the name suggests.
Despite his small size, Plankton has actually been shown to keep up with the cast physically as well. He's consistently outran them, ripped atoms apart by hand, and survived getting stomped on by almost every character in the show. And when he was powered up into his plankton form by SpongeBob, he was actually able to kick people so hard, they flew all the way around to Bikini Bottom.
And keeping up with Squarepants is no small feat, considering the insane bullshit they're capable of. They survived nuclear explosions point blank, sucked up all the water of ocean just for fun, and just broke the entire universe on multiple occasions. And they can get stupidly fast as well, given characters have piloted ships through the stars absurdly fast. You even flip burger patties so fast they transcend the universe.
With all of these powers at his disposal, you really think he would have won at least once by now.
Well, he has, but time and time again, SpongeBob and friends have managed to foil these plans. Since despite everything, he's still a tiny guy. Kinda feel bad for him, all things considered. Before all the taking over the world business, he was just a small dude who wants some respect from those who'd step on him. But no matter how many machines he builds, no matter how many times he nearly conquers it all, he's still constantly underestimated and mistreated.
It was this constant belittlement and resentment that made Plankton go blind to the one person who was there for him all this time, his computer wife. He grew more resentful and bitter towards her, outright threatening to kill her on some occasions, until she eventually snapped and tried to take over the world on her own accord, forcing her husband to realize that he's a jerk. Eventually, he'd come to terms with himself, reuniting with his wife and continuing his evil schemes hand in hand with the ones he loved. He finally learned that to be thought of as a king, he never needed to steal a crown.
Doofenshmirtz Evil Incorporated!
Well, Norm, I've done it! I've recreated every single Inator, invention, and item that I've ever made. Convenient, right? I don't understand. Why did you punch through my wall? The port is right over there.
I am Sheldon J. Plankton, the new ruler of the surface world.
chicken replacementator! Behold, the breadinator! Behold! See, now it's not as much fun if I have to say it over and over.
Karen, we need to do something about those Inators of his.
Agreed. Now accessing Plankton 1.
Yes. Ooh. Yeah! You can't defeat me! I went to college!
No college degree can pass good old-fashioned weaponry. Goodbye now.
No one lays a finger on my Sheldon!
How dare you! Take my ray gun, Sheldon the Plankton! No, wait!
Oops!
That's a final film! Oh, hell, Plankton!
Cursed you, Sheldon the Plankton!
There's a lot going on in this match. Both these two did have a lot of machines and matches which you could use in battle, and on paper Doof definitely had a sizable edge in sheer versatility, but Plankton had everything he needed to keep up.
First of all, Doof lacks any lick of common sense. He consistently loses due to his own short-sightedness in combat, and while similar things could be said for some of Plankton's schemes, Doof deliberately sticks a self-destruct button on all his machines.
But the real issue is the scale the two were working at. Both these two are from very cartoony worlds with a lot of absurd feats done daily, but it's a lot more common for Spongebob to have absurd power for Toon Force gaps, whereas Phineas and Ferb has that being more rare. And when both could wreck entire universes at their peaks, Doof is typically only able to do that as an unintended side effect of the strongest natures, whereas in Spongebob they just do it themselves whenever they want as a goof. And keep in mind, Plankton regularly keeping up with him in fights mean he has the better argument for personally scaling to this level of power.
In terms of their arsenals, both had plenty of counters over the other. Time travel, clones, mechs, you name it. Doof certainly had his advantages, like turning Plankton's mechs into bread or restarting the battle with the duo-Inator, but he had to be continually hopping from Inator to Inator to Inator, whereas Plankton could often rely on his army to do some heavy hitting. Most of Doof's army are reutilized items, like microwaves of plants. Plankton's were intentionally designed and built to kill. Norm had superior firepower, but Karen could control and utilize almost all of the inventions and mechs Plankton has made. Doof just didn't have as many options outside of just hoping the Inator he picked was somehow the right one to fight with.
Plankton, meanwhile, had plenty of options to fight in his favor first. He could reduce Doof to a baby or an old person, brainwash him with mind control helmet, or just rip apart Doof on an atomic level.
Sure, Doof could end the fight easily with a lot of his Inators, but we see that in life or death scenarios, he'll often prioritize his innocuous inventions like the chicken replace-inator, whereas Plankton could literally use warplanes to steal a burger recipe. The main difference between these two is who they are on the inside. When Doof took over, he put on a hat and cane and sang about his takeover with backup dancers. When Plankton took over, he enslaved the god of the sea and everyone he knew. If there's one thing we learned in this matchup, while Doof is a bad guy, Plankton is a bad guy.
The winner is Plankton. Yeah, baby!